Okay, before we begin the shir today, I'd like to share a unbelievable hashgocha practice that I just had before. We had the shir late today, 3 o'clock, because I had to go pick up a Pesach order that's done by this incredible organization called Chazdei Lev. They have discounted items for Pesach and for all year that they give out for teachers, Malamdim, Agid Yishurim. So I went to pick up my order. This year things were different because of what's going on, and it was a new location and I wasn't sure exactly what's going to happen. I came there and I see lots of people are waiting in their cars. And I asked someone, knew what's going on? We don't know. They told us just wait. And everyone's waiting, and I see someone else asking, what time were you supposed to pick up your stuff? 45 minutes before me, and he's sitting and waiting there. Finally, someone comes out, everyone gives them their papers, the order numbers of their items, and he takes all the papers. After about a minute, he comes back out. Whose paper is this? Whose paper is this? And it's my paper. He says, drive around the block, I have your order in the back of the building, come get your order. I'm driving around the block and I see that all the cars are following me around the block. I come around the back of the building and I pull in over there, and someone comes out and is screaming at everybody, why is everyone following him? No one's supposed to be here. I have his order, everybody get out of here. I'm waiting there for about 10 minutes. They bring out my order, and one of the heads over there that is taking care of everything comes out and says, I want you to know you're very lucky. People that their order was supposed to be here 8 o'clock in the morning, their order didn't arrive yet, and we don't know when it's coming. Your order was sitting there ready for you, and you're the first one that's getting it today. And I took my order, and I was able to leave on time. And I really, the only reason I think I had the schus to be able to do this, I spoke before to someone else. He told me that he waited a couple hours, and he told him come back tomorrow. Everybody waited a very, very long time. I think the only schus was to be able to make it back on time for the Gemara share. And schus harabim, the Gemara share, because I was able to get everything I needed on time and get here on time. Okay, let's begin the Gemara for today. We're going to start 2 lines, or actually the very last line, on Daf Chavdalet Amud Beis. Rav Ashi Omar. So what the Gemara was discussing over here is, why are you not allowed to burn Shemen Sreifa on Yom Tif? And it can't be used for lighting candles on Yom Tif, Shemen Sreifa being terumah tmeya. Why can't that be done on Yom Tif? So we had already 2 opinions. The Gemara now brings a 3rd opinion. So let me just preface what I mentioned yesterday, that usually there's a klal, esse doicha lo sese. When you have a positive commandment, it pushes off a negative commandment. The mitzvah to burn sreifas kodshim, when you have a case of noiser, leftover kodshim, that's a mitzvah. Be'esh tesreifu. The mitzvah not to do any malacha on Yom Tif is a lo sese. So usually the halacha is esse doicha lo sese. That in this case, the mitzvah to burn the kodshim will push off the lo sese of not doing malacha on Yom Tif. And therefore the Gemara brought 2 other sources, one from Chizkiah and one from Abaye, why you may not burn the kodshim on Yom Tif. Here, Rav Ashi is going to be mechadish to us and say that really the isser of doing malacha on Yom Tif is not only a lo sese, but it's an esse as well. It's an esse and a lo sese, and therefore the mitzvah of burning the kodshim cannot push off when it's both an esse and a lo sese. Let's see the Gemara inside. Rav Ashi Omar, Rav Ashi says, Shabbosin. The Torah says, Shabbosin, this is a pasuk that talks about Sukkos, and it uses the expression of Shabbosin. It's a day of rest. So Rav Ashi says, Esse. The word Shabbosin is a command, it's a mitzvah saseh. V'havele Yom Tiv, if so, not to do malacha on Yom Tiv, to rest on Yom Tiv is an esse, vil lo sese, it's both an esse and a lo sese. Ve'ein esse doiche es lo sese va'aseh. So the esse of burning the kodshim will not push off doing malacha on Yom Tiv, not being allowed to do malacha on Yom Tiv, which is both a lo sese and an esse. So that's Rav Ashi's chiddush. I mean, when it says Shabbosin, according to the other opinions that were brought before, they hold that Shabbosin is not a mitzvah saseh. Shabbosin is just stating a fact of what the day is. It's a day of rest. But Rav Ashi holds Shabbosin is a command, it's a mitzvah saseh. So not doing malacha on Yom Tiv is an esse and a lo sese, and therefore burning the kodshim does not push it off. So now the Gemara is segueing into a different discussion here. Well, we said before that when it comes to burning kodshim, you're not allowed to have hana from burning it while it's burning. You can't use it to cook with it. You can't use it in a fireplace to heat your home. But when it comes to terumah, when you burn the terumah, you're allowed to have hana of what the terumah that you're burning. So the Gemara here is going to discuss the source for this. Ha b'choil, so b'yontiv hu da'aser. On Yontiv, that's when it's asur to burn the terumah tmeya or the kodshim. Ha b'chayil, but when it comes to a weekday shaperdami, you could burn it and you could have hana of it as well. My time, what's the reason for this? What's the source for this? Omar Rav, so Rav says as follows: Kishem shemitzvah lisref kodshim shenitmu. Just as there's a mitzvah to burn kodshim that became tamei. So before we mentioned naisar, but we're not talking only about a case of naisar, which is leftover kodshim. We're talking also about any kind of kodshim that becomes pasul, that can't be used for the mizbeach. It became tamei and so on. So there's a mitzvah to burn the kodshim. Kach mitzvah lisref es terumah shenitmes. So too, there's a mitzvah to burn terumah that becomes tamei. So Rashi here gives two reasons for this. Rashi says that the source of burning terumah that becomes tamei is either because it's compared to kodshim, or because of a takala. If you leave that terumah around, you may come to eat it, and you're only allowed to eat the terumah when it's tahir, not when it's tamei. Back into the Gemara, so the Torah says, "B'shas biyura teheni mimena." While you're burning the terumah tmeya, you may have hana of it. Heichan amra Torah. Where did the Torah say that while you burn the terumah tmeya, you could have hana from it? Mid Rav Nachman. So the Gemara first brings a source from Rav Nachman. The Gemara here will bring a few sources. The first source is Rav Nachman. Dam Rav Nachman, Am Rabba Baravua, Omakra. The pasuk says, "Va'ani hinei nosati lecha es mishmeres terumaisai." And I have given to you the terumah to keep for yourself. So it says here, terumaisai, using a plural term regarding terumah. B'shtei terumas hakasav medaber. The Torah speaks about two different kinds of terumas. Achas terumah tahira. One, the Torah speaks about terumah that's tahir and it's fit for the kohen to eat. V'achas terumah tmeya. And the Torah also speaks about terumah which is tamei, and va'amar achmana l'cha. Regarding both of these terumas, the Torah says l'cha, which means shalacha tehei, that it's for you to use. Just like when it comes to terumah tahira, it's for you to use to eat. Terumah tmeya, it's yours to use lahasika tachas tafshilcha, that you could use it to place a fire under your pot to cook food. So this is the source. It says in the Torah Lucha, and it says Terumaisai, referring also to Terumah Tmeya, that you could have hana of it while you're burning it. That's one source from Rav Nachman. Another source, V'bai Seime Mid Rabavo. We can learn it out from what Rabavo said. Amar Rabavo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. It says in the pasuk, V'loi biyarti mimenu betame. I have not consumed the meiser while I was tamei. This is a pasuk that says by the mitzvah of vidui meiser. Once in 3 years, you have to get all the meisers that you haven't given over the 3 years out of your house. And there's a vidui, there's a confession that a person says that I've done everything right, I've given all the meisers. And one of the details it says regarding meiser is that I haven't eaten the meiser, I haven't consumed the meiser, or had any benefit of the meiser while I was tamei. So the Gemara darshans, mimenu iyatamavir. From the meiser, you can't have any benefit if you're consuming it or if you're burning it. Aval atamavir, if it's tamei. Aval atamavir, shemen shel terumah shenitmes. But if you're talking about oil that comes from terumah that became tamei, and it's fit to be used at a fire under a pot to cook with it, that you're allowed. That's the miut of the word mimenu. Only regarding meiser, you're not allowed to use it when it's tamei, but not with terumah. Frag the Gemara. So we have a miut of the word mimenu. Who says it goes on terumah? Maybe I can say mimenu yatamavir. When it comes to meiser, you can't consume it when you're tamei. Aval atamavir shemen shel kodesh shenitmu. Maybe shemen that comes from a carbon, from kodshim, that is something that could be used. You could have anah of it when you burn it. What kind of shemen are we talking about? So Rashi says that we're talking about oil that's used for a carbon mincha. I believe that Rashi is in other places, not over here. So Rashi in Yivamis or in another place, Psachim, Rashi says that the oil we're talking about is the oil that's used for a carbon mincha, and it became tamei before it became part of the carbon. So that oil you have to burn. So maybe we should say that the miyut of the pasuk v'loi biyarti mimenu is going on shemen of kodshim. Who says it goes on shemen of terumah? So the Gemara says, no, that's not logical. Lav kal v'chaymehu, isn't it a kal v'chaymer? Ma meiser akal omer teire loy biyarti mimenu betamei. If regarding meiser, which is much lighter than kodshim, the Torah says that I have not used it while it was tamei, I did not have any benefit of it. Kodesh chamor, kodesh, which is a carbon brought in the Beis Hamikdash on the Mizbeach, and so on. For sure, it's more chamor than meiser, like kol shekain. For sure, you can't have any hana of it when you burn the kodshim. So it's not logical to say that the Torah means to exclude kodshim, that it doesn't have the same chumrah as meiser. I hachi, fragt the Gemara, if so, terumah. If you're making this kal v'chaymer, make the same kal v'chaymer regarding terumah. Lein the kal v'chaymer, let's say also the kal v'chaymer. Kal v'chaymeru. If meiser, we're talking about meiser sheni here. Meiser sheni that could be eaten by any yid, as long as you bring it to Yerushalayim and anybody can eat it. And so if regarding Ma'aser Sheni the Torah was machmir that you can't have a na of it when it's tamei, for sure terumah that's more chomer, it can only be eaten by a kayin, for sure you shouldn't be allowed to have a na of it when you're burning it. So if you're using this kal v'chaymer, so you can't learn out from here for kodshim, so you shouldn't learn out from here for terumah as well that it should be allowed to have a na of it. So the Gemara answers, but haksiv mimenu. We have the word mimenu, which is a miyut. It tells us to exclude something. So therefore we exclude terumah and not kodshim. Even though it's not necessarily logical, but we have a miyut, the word mimenu. Frag the Gemara umara isa. What do you see that you put the miyut specifically on terumah and not on kodshim? And for the Gemara, mistavre, it makes logical sense. Kodesh loime me'itna. Kodesh, kodshim, is more stringent, and we're not going to exclude it from not having a na when it's tamei, and it's going to be like meiser. Why is that? Because we find a special chumrah regarding kodshim. What is that chumrah? So the Gemara here gives a siman for this. Shekain siman, the following siman of panak akas. There are six chumras that we find regarding kodshim. What are those six chumras? So the Gemara says, the first one is pigul. Pigul generally refers to a person that brings a carbon, and while he's bringing the carbon, doing any of the essential avodas of the carbon, he has a kavanah that he's going to eat the carbon shaloi bizmanai, out of the allotted time. That's the way Rashi teaches pigul over here. Naisar is when you leave over from a carbon. So the pigul is the kavanah, and that makes the carbon puzzle. Naisar is once you leave over, you only have a very short period of time you can eat it, and once you leave over, you can't have any anah of it anymore. Taisvis teaches this differently. Taisvis says that pigul refers to a person that had the wrong kavanah, but a different wrong kavanah. He had the kavanah to eat it shaloi b'mekaimai, that is going to eat it out of the allotted place where you're allowed to eat the kodshim. That's not the usual type of pigul. V'derech klal, pigul refers to shaloi b'zmanai, but Taisvis says that pigul over here refers to a person that had the kavanah to eat it shaloi b'mekaimai, or he actually ate it shaloi b'mekaimai. And naisar refers to a person that had the kavanah to eat it shaloi b'zmanai, or he actually ate it shaloi b'zmanai. Because Taisvis wants that all the chumras that there are in kodshim should be included in the Gemara. According to Rashi's pshat, we're missing some of the chumras in the Gemara, so therefore Taisvis wants to put in all the chumras that we find by kodshim. The next thing is, it's a carbon. It's a carbon that's brought on the Mizbeach, and that itself is a chumrah. Me'ila, there's the special halacha of Me'ila. You're not allowed to have any benefit of anything from kodshim, and the special halachas regarding Me'ila. And karis, somebody that has any benefit that uses, someone that's tamei, that is, that eats from kodshim, there's a chi of karis. That's what it refers to over here, the kodshim. And by the way, I believe this is today's chumash in Parshas Tzav, hashgocha pratis. This is the halacha that you chayev kodshim, that if you eat tamei from kodshim. And the last one is aser la'aynon. It's forbidden for an aynon, which is a person, Rahman al-Islam, that he has a close relative that passed away on the day of when the person passed away, by the day before the kvura. He's called an aynon, and he's not allowed to eat any kodshim. That's only a chumrah by kodshim and not by terumah. So we see that there are these 6 chumras that there are by kodshim, so therefore it doesn't make sense to say that kodshim will be an exclusion, to be makel, to be lenient, that when you burn the kodshim, you could have a no of it. Fragt the Gemara, Adarab, on the contrary, I can show you that terumah has certain chumras. Terumah loy memayit, no, terumah I shouldn't be memayit, because terumah also has chumras. Shekain mach paz, has these 4 chumras. What is a chumras? So the following siman the Gemara gives. Misa, if a person that's a zar, he's not a kohen, he eats terumah, he's chayiv misa b'dei shemayim, or a kohen that's tomei and eats terumah is chayiv misa b'dei shemayim. Chaimish, and then there's a chaimish, a person that took a zar, that took the terumah from the kohen and ate it, took it away from the kohen, has to pay back not only the principal, but he has to pay an added 5th. The ain law pidyon, and when it comes to terumah, there's no halacha of pidyon. You can't ever redeem terumah, no such a thing, which of course is not the case by kodshim. There are certain cases by kodshim where pidyon is possible. And vasura lezarim. Terumah is forbidden for any zar to eat it, which is not the case when it comes to basically all kodshim kalim. The bialim of the carbon also gets a portion of the carbon, which is also something that you have in today's chumash in Parshas Tzav, where it talks about the parts of the carbon, like carbon taida and other cases, which goes to the person bringing the carbon. So we see these chumras that there are by terumah that you don't have by kodshim. So let me stop for a moment on one of them, and Taisus discusses this on Amud Aleph. The Gemara said that regarding kodshim, there's a chumrah that is kodshim, which terumah does not have. And on the other hand, terumah has a chumrah that is misa b'dei shemayim, which kodshim doesn't have. So it's interesting. Which one is more chomer? Is kodshim more chomer, or is misa b'dei shemayim more chomer? So kodshim, I'll explain. Taisus actually says kodshim. There's 2 opinions about kodshim. A few opinions here. Rashi says kodshim means that a person's life is shortened. He passes away young, early, and I'll say there's 2 opinions about that. I'll mention in a moment. And besides that, he dies ariri, which means childless. That's what kodshim means. Now, Taisus brings 2 opinions regarding kodshim. One opinion is, which is mashman de Bavli, that kodshim is when a person passes away before the age of 60. And another opinion, which it says in the Yerushalmi, is that a person passes away before the age of 50. So, according to both of these opinions, Taisus explains, misa b'dei shemayim, if according to the Bavli, that kodshim is when a person passes away before 60, misa b'dei shemayim, according to the Bavli, a person passes away b'dei shemayim, but there's no time frame given exactly when he's going to pass away. There's going to be a misa b'dei shemayim, but there's no time given for that. On the other hand, according to Yerushalmi, kodshim is by the age 50, and misa b'dei shemayim is by the age 60. So therefore kodshim is definitely more chomer. Nevertheless, the Gemara does bring up misa b'dei shemayim as a chumrah for terumah, even though the einish of kodshim is actually a more chomer than the einish. The reason is because misa b'dei shemayim applies to anybody that eats the terumah. It's much more broadly across the board for any zar that eats terumah, which doesn't apply to kodshim, as the Gemara points out. By kodshim, it's only for a person that's tomei, or the kodshim is tomei, that eats it, then there's kodshim, but it doesn't apply to everybody and anybody. Okay, so the Gemara is pointing out, just like by kodshim there's chumris, so too by terumah there's chumris. So why are we saying that there's this leniency by terumah and not by kodshim, that you could have a no of it when you burn it? And for the Gemara, 2 answers. Number 1, hanach nefishin. The chumras that there are by kodshim are more than the chumras that there are by terumah, and therefore kodshim is still more chomer, and that's the one that we're memayit, and not, that's the one that we are not memayit, that is, and not terumah. Terumah we're memayit, and there's the leniency. Another answer, kodesh chomer. Kodshim is more chomer, shekein onish kodis. Kodis is a unique, very stringent thing, as Rashi says. There are 2 stringencies in this: the fact that his life is shortened, and the fact that he's born, that he leaves the world childless. So that's something that's very chomer, which kodshim has, and terumah does not have. Okay, so this concludes the pshat that Rabbi Vo said that we learn out from V'loi biyarti mimenu b'tamei to exclude terumah, that by terumah you could have anah while you're burning it. Now the Gemara brings a third pshat. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Omar, Rav Nachman by Yitzchak brings another pasuk. O makra, the Torah says regarding terumah, titein loy. Rashi brings here the full pasuk. Reishis the gancha titan loy. From your dogon, you give terumah to the kohen. So what this pasuk is teaching me is you can't take from produce which is tamei and use that to give it to the kohen and to pater your produce which is tahir by giving him this tamei produce as terumah. Because what happens if you give him tamei produce? He can't eat it. So the pasuk says, "Titein loy," give it to him that he can eat it. Loy v'loy la'iroi, give him terumah of produce which is tahir that he's going to be able to eat, and not that he has to throw into a fire and burn, and he can't eat it. Klal, so the Gemara says, from here we see the bas oiroi hu, that the terumah tmeya you throw into a fire and he could have anah of it. That's the pshat in the Gemara. So Taisus here asks on the Gemara, how do we know? Maybe terumah tmeya has to be thrown into the fire and you can't have anah of it. Give him terumah tahir that he can eat, and not terumah tmeya which he has to throw into the fire and can't have any anah at all. So Taisus answers, if terumah tmeya was something that he doesn't have to, that he can't have anah at all, you wouldn't need the extra word of loy, because titein means give. You have to give something. If terumah tmeya he can't have any anah, you're not giving him anything. It's not a shava pruta. It's like you gave him nothing. The fact that it has to have the extra word loy besides titein is mashma. Even terumah tmeya, you're giving him something. It's worth a pruta. He could do something with it. He could use it as oil or as fuel for a fire for a pot. And still the Torah says, give him something which is tahor that he can eat, and not terumah tmeya, which he could only use as a benefit for a fire. That's the third pshat the Gemara brings as a source for this halacha that terumah tmeya you're allowed to have anah of. Now the Gemara returns back to the Mishnah, which discussed the halachas of lighting Shabbos candles. So it said in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shmuel Oimer, Rabbi Shmuel said you're not allowed to light Shabbos candles from itron, which is some kind of a liquid, a residue that comes out from tar, which has a bad smell. My time, what's the reason for this? So Rava says, Mitoich sherei ra, or the other girsa is Rabbe. Because it has a bad smell. So he's going to leave this room which is lit, and he's going to go into a different room which is dark. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye said, V'yetze, so let him leave. He did a mitzvah, he lit Shabbos candles, he doesn't like the smell, let him go out to another room. Amalei, so Rava or Rabbe answered, Shani Aimer, because I say, Hadlokas ner b'Shabbos chayva. The lighting Shabbos candles is a chayva. What does he mean to answer him? So Rashi here explains, it's kavod Shabbos. The place where you're having the Suda, and that's where you place your Shabbos candles, it's kavod Shabbos, so you should have your Suda there by the Shabbos candles. Not that you should go out to another room where it's dark. So it's interesting. This is the source over here in the Chafayim at Beis and Shabbos, where there's the Shitta of Rashi and the discussion in the Rishonim, what exactly is the chayva of mitzvahs hadlakas ner Shabbos Kodesh. So Rashi, as I mentioned, says that the source of the concept of lighting Shabbos candles is kavod Shabbos. Whenever you have a festive meal and you light candles, that gives a kavod for the event, for the meal. Taisva says,
especially those days, there was no
correct. There was no other right. But you light special candles for the meal. It's even today when you see people make a festive event by a chasana, bar mitzvah, or other festive meals. You light candles and so on. Taisva says differently. Taisva says it's Einik Shabbos, not kavod Shabbos. Einik Shabbos. What's Einik Shabbos? If a person's eating in a dark room, it's not geschmack. It's not pleasant. If you light candles, so then it gives you the pleasure, the geschmack, to be able to eat in a lit room. So it's an inyan of Einik Shabbos. That's what Taisus says. So it's two different opinions, kavod and einig. Interestingly, the Rambam brings both opinions. The Rambam holds that there's two different dinim beneged to adlakas ner Shabbos Kodesh. In Perek Kei of Hilchos Shabbos, he brings kavod Shabbos. In Perek Lamed of Hilchos Shabbos, he brings einig Shabbos. So the Rambam holds both. Very interesting. And in one place, the Rebbe explains 2 points. First of all, the Rebbe says, if you look into the Rambam, you'll notice that there's a slight difference between the way Tosfos describes Einik Shabbos and the way the Rambam describes Einik Shabbos. Tosfos describes Einik Shabbos with lighting Shabbos candles, that if you don't light Shabbos candles and you're eating in a dark room, so then there's less pleasure in the experience of the meal, of the eating. You have a lit room and you eat, so then it's more pleasure, it's more pleasant. The Rambam doesn't talk about a person that's eating. The Rambam there is talking in a case even a person is not eating at all. Just the fact that you have a lit room, that in itself is the oinig, the pleasure, the pleasantness of lighting Shabbos candles, nothing to do with the eating and drinking on Shabbos. That's a slight difference. Another thing is a nafkamina between these two shittis, whether it's Einik Shabbos or Kavod Shabbos. So the Rebbe says that there are two nafkaminas, and some of the Achrayim speak about this already. The nafkamina is first a person that made a neder, not to have a no of his friend. Not going to have any anah of his friend. Is he allowed to have anah? Is he allowed to walk into his house when the Shabbos candle is burning? So if the Shabbos candles are lit for oineg, to derive the pleasantness and the pleasure of the candle, so then you're having anah from it. But if the Shabbos candles are simply lit just for Kavod Shabbos, so then Kavod Shabbos is not an inyan of oineg where you're having anah of it. It's a separate inyan. Another thing is, Kavod Shabbos is something that applies if a person lights Shabbos candles and it's still light outside. Today we light Shabbos candles 18 minutes before Shkia. It's still light outside, and you're not really deriving any benefit of it if it's light and the room is lit without the Shabbos candles. And especially today when there's anyways electricity in the room. So l'chayra, there's no inyan of Einik Shabbos, but there's still an inyan of Kavod Shabbos, because as I said, when you have a festive meal, when you have something to show a special honor for the day, you light candles. So there's an inyan of Kavod Shabbos even when it's light outside. Yeah, those are the two nafkaminas between these two shittas. There is, though, another inyan in lighting Shabbos candles, which we'll also see in the Gemara soon, and that is shalom bayis, the shalom bayis that the Shabbos candles bring. Some say that it's connected to Einik Shabbos. That's part of the pleasure and the pleasantness in the home. That's shalom bayis and einik go together. Others say that the shalom bayis goes together with the kavod. It's kavod Shabbos when things are more relaxed and pleasant and calm in the home. That guf is the kavod of Shabbos. But I think most opinions, and the Rebbe when he discusses it says that it's a third inyan. Shalom bayis is not the kavod. It's not einik. It's a third inyan of shalom. It's an inyan of shalom bayis on Shabbos, not connected, not to kavod, not to the einik. It's a third inyan, and you see this in a lot of Rishonim as well, that in Shabbos there's a third inyan of shalom bayis. I think I mentioned yesterday or 2 days ago that in the Rambam, in Hilchas Shabbos, he doesn't mention anything about the concept of shalom bayis. He just mentions kavod and einik. In Hilchas Chanukah, when he talks about what comes first, Ner Chanukah or Ner Shabbos, he mentions the fact that Ner Shabbos has the benefit of being shalom bayis. Okay, let's go weiter in the Gemara. Sagt die Gemara, der Omer Rav Nachman bar Rav Zavde v'omri lo, Omer Rav Nachman bar Rav Omer Rav, had lokas ner b'Shabbos, chayva. Lighting ner Shabbos is a chayva. Chayva to light ner Shabbos. So there's an interesting discussion in Tosfos over here, the lashon of chayva. Tosfos says that we find when the lashon of chayva is used, not necessarily do you make a bracha. And Tosfos brings a source by Mayim Achrayim. The Gemara uses the expression of chayva, that it's a chayva to wash mayim achrayim. You don't make a bracha on washing mayim achrayim like you do on netilas yadayim. So here the Gemara uses the term chayva. Does it mean that you don't make a bracha? And there are actually Rishonim that hold, very minority opinion, but there is such an opinion that's brought in the Mordechai that you don't make a bracha on their Shabbos Kodesh. It's a chayva, that is, as the Gemara says, but it's not a mitzvah that deserves a bracha. But Tosfos says, no, it's not. That's not the case here. Tosfos says you have to make a bracha. And then Tosfos explains another point. Even though l'chayra, when it comes to Ner Shabbos Kodesh, if you have neiros that are already lit from before, so l'chayra, there shouldn't be a chiyuv me'ikar adin to light Ner Shabbos Kodesh. If you don't have neiros lit from before, then you have a chiyuv to light. But if it's lit already from before, you don't have a chiyuv to light. So this is a kind of mitzvah that you're not even mechuyev to do. So why should you make a bracha on it? Says Tosfos, he's still mechuyev to make a bracha, and Tosfos brings a few examples. One example he brings from Kisei Adam, by covering the blood when you shecht. We learned about that 2 days ago, 2 or 3 days ago. What happens if the dam gets covered on its own? The wind blew sand over it and it gets covered on its own. So there's no mitzvah of covering it, it's covered. But nevertheless, when it's not covered and you cover it, there's a mitzvah and you make a bracha. So you see that even if something could get done on its own, when you do it, there's a mitzvah to make a bracha. Then Rabbeinu Tam is machadish something else, based on the Gemara that we learned 2 days ago, that if you have neiros that were lit in advance earlier on Friday, So when Shabbos comes, you're supposed to put out the candles and relight it for the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos Kodesh. And the Gemara we learned 2 days ago was Lo ma'achrin v'lo makdimin, not to light it too early and not to light it too late. So if it's burning from before, you have to put it out. The mitzvah is the maisa of lighting the Ner Shabbos Kodesh. That itself is the mitzvah, which is a discussion that Achrayim talk about. What's the ikka gather of the mitzvah of Ner Shabbos Kodesh? Is it the Maisa HaHadloka that you're doing it, the Kavod Shabbos, and that you're doing something to show Kavod for Shabbos? Or is the mitzvah the fact that it's there, that it's burning, the fact that it provides the light in the room? But Pashtus, the main gather of the mitzvah is the fact that it provides the light later when the meal comes. If a person lights Ner Shabbos Kodesh and it immediately goes out, and when you come to the Suda, when it comes to Shabbos, the Neiros are not lit, you're not yetzer the mitzvah. So that's another reason, by the way, why some Rishonim say that maybe you shouldn't make a bracha. You're making a bracha on the action and then it goes out, you don't necessarily have the mitzvah. The mitzvah is only later when it comes to the Suda Shabbos. Lighting it is only the hashgocha of the mitzvah. But Rabbeinu Tam holds, no, but this is the mitzvah. The action, the maisa of the mitzvah is lighting it. And therefore you do make a bracha on that. Sagt die Gemara weiter, Rechitzas, Yedayim, Veraglayim, Bechamen. Washing your hands, your feet, bechamen in warm water, arvis in the evening, before coming into Shabbos. This is, we're talking here about Erev Shabbos Rishos. This is a Rishos, not obligated to. But I say mitzvah. It is a mitzvah to wash yourself before Shabbos. My mitzvah. What's the mitzvah? The Omer Rav Yehuda Amarav Kachoyim min Hagay Shel Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai. This was the custom of Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai. Erev Shabbos, on Erev Shabbos, Mivian Loi Arevam Leim Chamin. They brought him a bucket full of hot water. V'roichetz Panav Yada V'Raglov, and he would wash his face, his hands, and his feet. U'Misatif, and he would wrap himself in his garment. V'Yoshev B'Sadinin Hametziyotzin. And he would be wrapped in these linen clothing, linen sheets that had tzitzis on it. It had 4 corners and they placed tzitzis on it. V'doime lemalach Hashem tzvais. And his face was shining like a malach. Night of Shabbos. And the Gemara adds, "V'hayu talmidov mechaben mimenu kanfei ksuson." And his talmidim also were wearing these linen clothing, but they didn't put tzitzis on their clothing, and they were hiding their clothing because they didn't want him to see that they weren't putting tzitzis. The Gemara is going to discuss this in a moment about the chiyuv of tzitzis on a linen garment. Let me just mention one thing. The Gemara here says that he washed himself and he wrapped himself and he was prepared for Shabbos and his face was shining like a malach Hashem tzvois. It says when you get to Shabbos that on Shabbos the face of many big tzaddikim was shining on a different level. There's the famous story they say about the Be'er Maim Chaim. He also wrote Sfarim on Shabbos called Sidurei Shel Shabbos, that when it came Shabbos, he was literally a head taller. The Shabbos physically affected his body that he was a head taller. And it's brought in the Sefer Teres Chaim from the Mittler Rebbe, the son of the Balatanya. So he writes in the Sefer Teres Chaim in Parshas Vayakel that a doctor once measured the pulse of a Yid, and he said that there's a very slight difference in the pulse of a Yid on Shabbos from a weekday. Not necessarily is it so easy to detect, but he measured, he says the pulse of a Yid on Shabbos is not the same as Shabbos Kodesh. Okay, so now let's see over here a short discussion.
Slower or faster?
I think a bit faster, no? Maybe slower because of the Menucha of Shabbos. Okay, could be. So the Gemara now has a short discussion beneged to the tzitzis. What's the story with having tzitzis on linen garments? So here's the story. Linen, and then you have the tzitzis, which is made out of wool, is going to be shatnez. So you have an issue of shatnez. But the halacha is that for tzitzis, shatnez is allowed. But if it's not tzitzis, if there's no chiyuv of tzitzis, then shatnez is not allowed. So that's the discussion over here beneged to this tzitzis. Well, first we start with a machlokes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Let's see. Amalehen, so Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai said to his students, Banai, my children, Loi kach shani silachem, is this not what I learned for you? Sadin betzitzis, a linen sheet for tzitzis. Is it obligated to put tzitzis on it or not? Beis Shammai paitrin. Beis Shammai say it's pater because it's going to be shatnez. right? And they don't hold that there's any heta to put tzitzis on this. So really, it's not only paitrin, it should really be that it's aser. Taisus points this out. It's not only pater, but it's shatnez. Taisus explains why it chooses the word paitrin, but really it means that it would be aser. Beis Hillel mechayvin, but Beis Hillel say that you're chayiv. And the Gemara darshans in Yevamis and in different places that you learn out a hekish from, it says in the Torah, the mitzvah of tzitzis and the mitzvah of shatnez together. So you learn out that by tzitzis there's no shatnez. That's the shitta of Beis Hillel, which we paskin like. But v'halacha kedivri Beis Hillel. So Rav Yehuda Bar Eloi is telling his students the halacha is like Beis Hillel. So why didn't you place tzitzis, wool tzitzis on your linen garments? So the Gemara explains v'inu, and their opinion, Savri, they held gzeira mishum ksus laila. There's a gzeira because of a ksus laila. A ksus, this is Rashi's pshat. There's machlekes rishonim about this, but Rashi's pshat is a garment which is designated specifically for use only at night, pajamas or whatever it may be. That's something which is potter of tzitzis. So if you're going to place tzitzis on a garment that is a night garment and it's potter and it's going to be shatnez, you're going to be over on the isra of shatnez. So chachama were geyser not to place any tzitzis on any garment which is shatnez, because you might end up putting tzitzis on something which is potter of tzitzis, and then you're going to find yourself wearing shatnez. So we paskin like Beis Hillel, but there's also this gzeira, and therefore for linen garments there's no tzitzis, and that's how we paskin. That's Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. Now the Gemara comes back to something.
So you're allowed to wear it?
No, there's a gzeira. There's a gzeira with a rabbanon for linen garments not to put on tzitzis with wool strings,
and
because
four corners linen, you shouldn't wear it.
I guess not. Good question. L'chayre not, because it's without tzitzis. Correct. Sagt the Gemara weiter, coming back to Neire Shabbos Kodesh. Vatiznach mishalem nafshi, and my soul gave up from peace. Nashisi teva, I forgot goodness. This is an eicha, pasuk in eicha, talking about the time of the churban. Mai vatiznach mishalem nafshi. What does it mean that I gave up from peace? Amar Abavo zu adlakas ner b'Shabbos. This is lighting Neiris Shabbos Kodesh that brings peace. So here we see in the Gemara that Neiris Shabbos Kodesh is about bringing peace into the home. There are others, by the way, that are not good as the word b'Shabbos here and say that this refers b'chlal to lighting Neiris every evening in your house to bring in light into your house, so there could be peace in the house. Elamai, because it brings peace, and on Shabbos you can't light candles after it's Shkia, so therefore there's the mitzvah to do it before to make sure that there'll be peace in the home. And what's the next thing the Gemara says? Nashisi teva, I forgot goodness. Amar Rab Yirmiyah zu beis hamerchatz, having the ability to wash yourself in a bathhouse. Of course, Amalek Gezeiten, it wasn't like today where everyone had a shower in his house. So the goodness is to be able to keep yourself clean, hygiene, to be able to wash yourself. And the Gemara brings another opinion. Rab Yechanan Amar zu rechitzas yadayim v'raglayim b'chamen, washing your hands and feet with warm water, keeping you clean. We could see in this Gemara how important hygiene is. Right? In these days, there's a big emphasis on washing your hands and staying clean and so on. So over here, the Gemara says, goodness is when you have the ability to wash your hands. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Amar, what is goodness? What's Nashisi Teva? Zumita Noah, a beautiful bed, V'kelim Noam Shalel, and beautiful sheets and blankets that are spread out on your bed. Rab Abba says, Zumita mutzas, a bed that's spread out with the sheets, V'isha makushetes, and an adorned woman, a wife that is a Talmidei Chachamim for the Talmidei Chachamim. That's the goodness that the pasuk is talking about. Huh? Yeah, for Talmidei Chachamim. So now the Gemara goes on to say, once we're talking about the goodness that a person has, the Gemara goes on to talk about another kind of goodness. Tana Rabbanan. Eize Asher, who is considered to be a rich man? Kol sheyesh loi nachas ruach ba'ashrei. One that he has the ability to have nachas ruach of his riches. Divrei Rab Meir. What does it mean, nachas ruach of his riches? So Rashi over here says that this means like what it says in Pirkei Avos, a person that's sameach b'chalkai. He's happy with his lot that Hashem gives him. The Marsha, however, says different pshat in Rashi. The Marsha says the Gemara doesn't use the term of sameach b'chalkai like Rashi says. Rather, what it refers to is a person that the Eibishter gives him riches and gives him the ability to derive benefit of his riches. There's a situation where a person has riches and he can't have any ana of it. Today. A person, like today, can't go on vacation, you can't do all kinds of things, right? So if a person has the riches and Hashem gives him the ability, the health, and the ability to have ana of it, that's a real asher. Simin Memtes Kuf Samach. So the Gemara here is going to bring a few other opinions about Eze Asher, who's a rich man. Rab Tarfon says a rich man is Kol Sheyeshle Kuf Kramim, Kuf Sadais, V'Kuf Avadim. He has 100 vineyards, 100 fields, and 100 servants to serve him. Shavdim Behem, that are working in these fields and are working in these vineyards. Rabbi Akiva says, Kol sheyeshloi isha noah b'maisim. A person that has a woman, a wife, that's beautiful in her good deeds. Rabbi Yosi says, Kol sheyeshloi beis hakisei samech l'shulchanoi. A person that has the ability to use facilities, he has a bathroom in his house near the table where he eats and where he lives. Of course, then, as we learned so many times in the Gemara and Brachas, the facilities were out in the field, and most people did not have that luxury. So a person that has this luxury, he is considered to be a rich person. So the Maharsha over here explains, what is this? What is the pshat in these three opinions? What is the Gemara doing here with these three opinions that it brings? Who's considered to be a rich person? So the Maharsha says, first, the Gemara is discussing a person that wants to be rich because of the honor that it's going to bring him. So the Gemara says, if you're looking to become rich because you want to have the honor, so then the person will never be satisfied. And the Gemara here is just giving an example, but it doesn't mean specifically this number. It's just using an example of an exaggerated thing. Even if you have 100 fields, 100 vineyards, and 100 servants, if you're looking for the honor, so then it's not necessarily, you're never going to be happy. Okay, so that's the first thing that the Gemara says. Okay, so the next thing the Gemara says, a person that wants to be rich, he wants to be rich and he has a better reason for being rich, because he wants to be able to feed his wife and his children and his family. He has an obligation, al pitayra, to feed his wife and family, and his wife also